And I say this not as a game with you, and I'm serious. This is what I believe the industry is. There's too many companies telling the customer what they must have. And I don't know if they're listening enough to the exact consumer.
Today on a special episode of the CDG podcast, I'm joined by Jack Hollis, former COO of Toyota Motor North America. After more than 30 years at the country's #1 car brand, Jack walked away from the job at the top, shocking nearly everyone. But this retirement might not last long. In this exclusive conversation, Jack opens up about why he left, what leadership really means to him, and what he might be building next. A big thank you to our sponsors for making today's episode possible: Uber for Business, Lot Links, and Wrench. And now let's get into the show. On the CDG podcast, Jack, welcome.
Come on,
baby. We finally made it happen. How are you?
Hey, thanks for being patient. I'm doing great. I know we've tried to put this thing together, and I was psyched getting up this morning, like, let's go.
The team loved your onboarding form. We have, for everyone listening that's not aware, we have this little like onboarding form where, a guest just tells us a couple sentences about themselves. Yours was just punchy, to the point. They loved it. They're like, "Oh, this guy's humble." So we'll have a good conversation.
Thanks, man. I've been looking forward to this, and congrats to you. I keep seeing what you've been doing and really the insights and what you're bringing to the industry. Thank you. It's needed, and you're doing a great job. Seriously, you're doing
Appreciate
a great job. Yeah,
we got a lot more to come, so I can promise you.
All right.
I can't sit still, for better or worse. I can't sit still. So that's what you get with me.
Me neither. So I'm with you, brother.
Yeah. So actually, that was, it's funny. So I did not funny, but I did a lot of homework on you, because we've met once in person in California. We haven't spent much time together, but from people who have spent more time with you, I asked some questions. And one of the things someone actually said to me was that, and I'm reading off my notes here, they specifically said you're extremely charismatic, high energy guy. And they asked me, ask him if he really had that much fun at work, or was that just part of his personality, or, did it ever disservice him in, the Toyota culture? How do you respond to that?
Yeah. I don't know that I'm high energy or low energy or whatever energy. It's whatever you see is what you get. I am transparent, I can tell you that. And what I kind of chuckle at is my family laughs because I'm the same way at home. I'm the same way at work. Yeah, I do love work that much. I love my family that much. I love God that much. I love my friends that much. It just happens to be that it comes out as charismatic and energy, but it's just whether you like it or not, because some people don't, but it's just who I am. And I love people. And so if I can be with people, the more people I can be with, the better, and more energy it brings and more fun I have. It's really simple.
Okay, so you said a couple things there. I'm totally, I have my notes and I have this whole planned order I had in my head, and I'm already breaking it, right? Because you said a couple of things I want to hit on. So you're a pretty multi-dimensional guy. And what I mean by that is you've had an immensely successful career. You were a minor league baseball player. Mm-hmm. Your faith is also really important to you. You're a family man. You have these lots of parts in your life that all seem to be really important to you, just judging by, I would say, combination of things I've heard, time spent, your pedigree, right? 30 years at one of the leading manufacturers, auto manufacturers in the world, says something. I've heard you mention faith multiple times. You were clearly a fantastic baseball player. I saw your stats before this podcast. So I also was curious, why did he leave baseball? So just take us back. Start us early on. I want to understand how all these different dimensions, entered your life throughout your journey. Like, how did this all come to be this way?
Wow. Really, really grew up in Southern California, and very thankful to have parents committed to one another in marriage. They've been married for 60 years this year, and I'm proud of that. Same as my in-laws who happen to be sharing their 60th anniversary at the same year, same time. So this high kind of idea of loyalty, but in my parents, they gave their life to God at a young age, right when I was born. And so I kind of grew up in a household of faith, and it was very much about the grace of God, and that's what it was. And so for me, from early on, going to school, playing sports, going to work, whatever it was, having friends was always about doing it for God. It was always I work for God. And to this day, I work for God. I get paid by other people and stuff. So that was kind of what it was. But I was super passionate. My dad's a professional golfer. and I grew up in sports. He wanted to be a professional baseball player. That didn't work out, so he became a professional golfer. Short stint on tour before spending most of his life being a teaching pro up in Southern California at Rolling Hills Country Club. And so we share the same name. And it's a little known fact. I don't think you probably got this in your research, but my real official name is Andrew Jackson Hollis V.
Didn't get that.
My dad's the fourth. My son's the sixth. I don't know if it'll continue on, but there's a heritage thing that was important. But I kind of grew up in sports. And so I went on, and I love sports, and played baseball and basketball were my two passions. And I played it both through high school and wanted to play them in college. And I was fortunate enough to be able to play at Stanford and win a national championship and then sign a contract to play minor league baseball. And quite honestly, this is the truth. In the second season, hurt my arm. I was a center fielder, batted leadoff, fast guy, had that kind of prototype to be a leadoff guy. But getting hurt took me back a little bit. And in baseball and in any sport, when you're in the minor leagues, you have to be great and get a break. Well, I was pretty good, and I didn't get a break. So there was no way I was going to the major leagues. And quite honestly, I was able to look in the mirror one day and just know that I wasn't at that same level and as major league. And it was okay. And it was okay to look at yourself in the mirror and be honest with yourself and say, time to move on. And I did. But the good news is in between my first season and my second season, I had met the woman I wanted to marry. And I'm married to her today. And 34 years later, it was the best decision ever. And but I used the same kind of philosophy as we kind of gone forward is how do we give our best to something? And so I give all of myself to sports. I give all of myself to school. I give all myself to my wife. And then I got hired by Toyota and I gave all myself to Toyota. And then 33 years later, I'm sitting here talking to you and I'll give my best I can to you too right now.
I love it. Yeah, and I'm sure there's lots of people wondering and saying, oh, when is he going to ask him about why he left and the rumors? And we'll get to that. I promise you guys. But before we get to that, let's talk about the time at Toyota. Yep. You were there for over 3 decades. Yep. It rose the ranks, truly transformative period for the brand. Just at a high level, what kept you in the game all those years?
Oh, 100% the people. I actually never even meant to stay at Toyota. I got a job. Toyota headquarters was in Torrance, and my hometown was in Torrance, California. I mean, so they were right there down the street. They supported my high school. I mean, I just kind of always knew Toyota and wanted to get a job. And I knew a couple of people, got an interview and started, but I never meant to stay. I meant to be there for 1 year and then go back into the sports world. I wanted to go back into baseball, maybe basketball, maybe with the Lakers and be in the front office or that kind of thing. That was where I was wanting to go. And after 6 months of living in Torrance, they moved me to San Francisco, the San Francisco region. And as I started meeting the teammates, the associates, and then the dealers, it was like this whole new world opened up. But it was massive amounts of people. And that's me. I talk about my motto being love God, love people. I just loved people. And so what's kept me in the business really is every year more and more of the people and getting to know the talents of this industry. But I will also say, I still believe I was an economics major at Stanford. I still argue that the auto industry is still the greatest demand and supply, true old school business economics that still lives today. And I loved it. I loved being able to apply my own thinking and knowledge into this industry and getting back so many people pouring into me to learn this industry and what this was all about. So what kept me in it was the people, but then as it grew every year was more of the depth of this industry, the globalness of this business.
Tell us a little bit about the transformations you were part of. So arguably in the 80s, or not arguably, but in the 80s, Toyota manufacturing set a new standard for, vehicle production. Today, right, we're 45 years post that. There's a lot of new technologies, and you were very convicted. And when the whole the rise of EVs started happening, Toyota didn't make any really big moves in that segment. You said, hey, we're leaning into hybrids. Even before that, you personally introduced a brand called Scion, which I think, again, I'm seeing a lot of similar things and rumblings in the market. A $20,000 pickup truck just got introduced, which I'm sure you heard of, Jeff Bezos backed. There's a lot of things happening right now. It's like, history rhymes, right? But start us off first with, if in the 80s, it was this like manufacturing revolution that Toyota was, it was the edge. What's next in the car industry? Where do you see as that next edge from an auto manufacturer perspective?
Yeah, I do want to make a comment going back, because when you look when it started, and really Kentucky, the plant in Kentucky set a new standard globally, not just for Toyota, but maybe for the entire industry. And it was taking the best of Kaizen and the best of Genchi Genbutsu and with the best of what we could do, and we applied it to the U.S. And that's critical that we go there, because that's what drove Toyota, continues to drive Toyota. But I think it's what the entire industry, my belief is the entire industry saw what happened in Kentucky and all the plants. But that was a big move, right? Out of Japan into the U.S. And that was a huge investment. And I think all of the manufacturers, even including U.S. manufacturers, learned from that. So the edge that got started was really in the 80s in Kentucky and that. As we go forward and you see the change that's going, the next edge, you can talk about Slade, you can talk about all the EV entries. What's missing is the key piece, is I'm not hearing enough attention on what is the customer asking for. And I say this not as a game with you, and I'm serious. This is what I believe the industry is there's too many companies telling the customer what they must have. And I don't know if they're listening enough to the exact consumer. Does that make sense? Do you understand where I'm going here?
Yeah, I think it's hard for me I'm listening to you. I don't know. There's the whole thing about like perceived versus revealed preferences and statistics and all that. And like, do people really know what they want? Or are you telling them? I didn't know that I wanted an iPhone in 2007. I do now. So, it's like, do we pave the path for the future and show people what they want? Or do people truly know what they want? I think
that's great. And so let's go down that path. What happened with Toyota and transformation? You start coming out with, in the late 80s, early 90s, you have hybrid. Nobody was talking about hybrid, but here, what was the consumer asking for? They were not asking for hybrid. They were asking for gas mileage.
For more fuel efficiency. Yeah.
Period.
Correct. That I agree with.
So a problem that was an edge, it was edgy. It was a problem that needed to be solved, and this was a solution. Maybe the solution, but it was at least a solution, and it caught on. But at first, for like 5 years, it was mocked. Toyota was mocked. We were mocked. You're making fun of this egg-like shaped vehicle. Maybe all that's true, but there was an answer to the problem. What is the problem that people are trying to answer today? That should be the edge. That should be the edge. And I don't know that people were saying we need, again, what is the electric vehicle movement solving? It's solving some issues, but is it really the answer? And so what you have is, so I think the next edge is less about the powertrain. It might be, but it's less about the powertrain. But the problem to solve is people want what? What are consumers wanting? And unfortunately, for many people is they simply want ease. They don't want to think. That's what they're saying. Take your phone. I want more of this. I want more. And what's happening is it's potentially taking away interaction between people. And I think there's a cycle that's coming here that needs to be answered, is how can the auto industry participate in connecting people more? And that's an issue when you start thinking about ahead, what's coming next. This came up to be a way to connect people, but it went so far that it kind of took over where it diminished maybe people's interaction. And throughout history, if you look at history of everything, almost always big change when how do people interact? And so can the vehicle do that? And that's why I do think there's things like autonomous vehicles may allow that. We'll see.
Courtesy transportation is no longer a nice to have, it's a need to have. That's why 80% of dealership respondents agree that providing on-demand courtesy rides with Uber has helped retain customers, based on Uber's survey of 79 organizations in 2023. With Central, you can request a ride on behalf of your customers even if they don't have the Uber app. Car dealerships are loving Uber for Business because it's a headache-free solution for offering white glove service and seamlessly handling tasks like pickup and delivery of auto parts and replacing shuttles and loaner cars. Dealers can request one-way or round-trip rides, add multiple riders and locations, and even monitor trips in real time. Plus, you'll get monthly reports to keep track of everything. If you're ready to reduce the costs associated with maintaining shuttles and limit the liability of loaner vehicles, it's time to partner with Uber. Visit t.uber.com/CDG Auto today to learn more, or visit the link in the show notes below.
Cars interacting with one another, how our phones connect with one another, how can the platforms be put into those vehicles such that our vehicles are interacting with one another, us through the vehicles, I mean. So there's kind of the edge, but that's leaving manufacturing. Manufacturing will keep up because they're going to help to solve that problem. Manufacturing comes behind the concept, and I think we're still seeing what's coming next. But I still believe in my heart of hearts, it has to somehow bring you and I closer together as people, not remove us further from one another, not isolation.
Okay, so you mentioned autonomous vehicles. What does the dealership look like in 10 years? Not a Toyota dealership, but just the franchise dealership. What does that model look like? What changes?
It's a concierge service. It's a business to literally answer your questions. It may be how to put electric charging in your home, and so you have a way to communicate with an electrician at the dealership. It's service. I think it is going to end up not just service is always the big piece here. The vehicles are still going to there's motors, there's electricity, there's batteries, there's wheels, there's tires, there's seats. They're always going to need to be worked on. So service is going to be the core outlet for every dealership. But the dealership, in my opinion, who does it best is going to be able to service the needs of a customer in more than just their vehicle. It's going to have to expand and to really think, again, it's answering what is the consumer really needing and give them that.
Integrate into other parts, integrate in parts that are maybe tangential to the vehicle ownership experience and purchasing experience, or like you said, not 100%. Just the actual purchase, but help you with other things in your home and stuff like that. Okay, so concierge service, to me, are we talking about margins compressing? Should we expect the dealership margin to continue on this just like secular compression through the next decade? Do you see that these are fulfillment centers? I guess used, of course, 2/3 of the dealership or half the dealership is pretty immune in the sense of used will be used, and fixed ops, you'll still need to service vehicles. New vehicles, what's your vision for that, or how do you see that playing out?
I don't necessarily see the margin compression as a necessary end or a need. The dealership themselves, and by the way, I can go on and on about retail dealerships are amazing. I mean, each dealership. I'm skeptical of the models that are direct to consumer. I think that there's a lot of good in them, but I think there's really a lot of negative, which we'll see down the road. I mean, all right, we'll see how these people want to go direct. But I think the dealership still, that function, that local community connection point, I don't know that the margins need to be compressed because you're still going to have, like you said, the used and the service, which still drives the majority of the profits anyways. I mean, you're just not making a lot of money on the new vehicles.
Yep.
There's still going to, people got to finance them. And so the profits are through the finance and through the service. And think about what you said, though. How can I be a concierge service? The idea of car washes, that's a big deal. Everybody wants their car washed. They want a clean car. They're going to live on forever. Body shops are going to live on forever. Why? Because accidents are going to occur and vehicles got to be fixed. What I mean by the concierge service is what is all of the entire ecosystem that the consumer plays in, and then expand that out into other areas that maybe not traditionally to the car, but how the car and maybe your phone and how infotainment works is going to have to be integrated at a greater level. And that answer person or persons at the dealership, I believe, will become even more valuable as technology continues to increase.
Speaking of technology, do you feel validated today? Given the last decade, it was you got a lot of heat for the let's press brakes on EVs. Let's continue with hybrids. How do you feel today?
Yeah, I feel that both Jack Hollis and at the time Toyota was right. The consumer wants choice, and we should give it to them. And there should be no mandates to it. It should be this is available. It's why there's a good competition, like you said before, about cell phones. There's not just one. There's an Apple and there's Samsung and other competitors who come in and have lost. And if we let the free-handed economy continue to actually be the free-handed economy, people can give people choice, we'll find out what the customer wants. So yeah, I feel like the choice all along was to listen to the dealership, have the dealership tell us what the customer wants and give it to them. I mean, it's the simplest thing. Ask a customer what they want and give it to them.
All I can say is the designer that decided to put like 30 cup holders in the Toyota Sienna is a genius. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know whose idea that was, who they surveyed, but that was a good one because all those cup holders are somehow full. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me. I swear to you. All right, wait. Transition back to the dealer. So when you think Toyota, you think dealer.
Yeah.
People rave about the Toyota dealership reputation or how Toyota works with its dealers, treats its dealers. Peel back the onion on this a little bit. How? Why? Where did this come from? How do we get to this point where Toyota has this immaculate reputation? What has been done internally in order to cultivate that?
I just want to define too. Whenever we're saying Toyota, I'm representing Toyota and Lexus in these words because Toyota, who really had the same focus, it actually even got elevated when we went to Lexus and how that dealership relationship would be critical. How did we get there? It really truly comes way back from the Toyota family. And I think that the roots of the Toyota family were always about helping others. Even from the beginning of the Loomworks company was to help, a son help his mother on an automated loom. Think about that. That's the core of the company, and people need to not make light of that.
That's like a personal value. You're saying that
personal value
through the company.
It was to help a mother, help a person, help society. It was to help Japan, and then it got globally. And I think what's important in that story is that set the tone. So our goal Ever since I was in it with Toyota for 33 years. But before me, everybody, all the leaders of the company were always about what is the dealer asking for? What's the dealer saying? Build out our dealer council. And because they were the closest and still are today to the consumer to let you know what you need to do. You don't need a significant amount of research department. You need a significant amount of listening to the dealer who listens to the consumer. And that's the one thing.
Walk into the dealership or pick up the phone. It's really simple. Yeah.
Oh, walk in. The best is when our field travelers are in the dealership actually listening. And what happens today is, and this is probably my, you want to call me old school guy, is because we do so much of in society of talking, we're not listening enough to other people's opinions and really respect everyone else's opinion. Doesn't mean you have to agree. It just means you have to listen. And by listening, you learn. And that's really, so when you ask where it started, where it goes, it's literally a commitment to listening to the dealer because they're the closest to the consumer. It's a very simple model. I don't know why everyone and every manufacturer does not follow the exact same policy, but it's clear that Lexus and Toyota, that's been the number one. And I preached it. I preached it for as many. It was preached to me, and I preached it to others. And to this day, I would still thank every single dealer and communication because they're the ones who taught me the business.
I think that's a really interesting point because you started off by speaking about values, and it seems like there's some OEMs out there that view the dealer as just like a means to an end, right? Yeah. And I think that's very different from viewing someone as a partner and how can we create the best experience together for that, as opposed to just, hey, you're, a service provider on the value chain, you do something for me. It's very transactional. And I think that brings along, other issues, like you said, lack of listening. But values is such a big part of this. And I'm curious to know, you talk to us a little bit about your personal life, you mentioned your faith, how just important that is to you. Is that something that, or I shouldn't say how has that impacted you as you were, rising the ranks at Toyota and, building out this company? Can you tell us, start just by telling us a little bit about your faith and your work and how that was just part of your just day-to-day decision-making and the way you led the company?
Yes, thanks for asking. You used the word transactional. I think the competitor to transactional is relational. Are people doing business in a relational way or a transactional way? My strength, which some people, I would say what I believe is my strength, but I also believe some people could see as weakness, is I believe in the relational. I have this whole idea of people before performance, people before profits, that you invest in people. And it's always about how you serve people. And quite honestly, where I learned that and when it comes to the faith, is the core of my learning was the Bible. And if you look at throughout the history, whether it be the Old Testament or New Testament, you see the stories of people serving, and every one of those is always, how does the king serve his people versus the people serving the king? And the best kings were the ones who served his people, who were humble. And so when you ask about where it is, for me, I knew that, for example, dealerships, and you ask me how did I integrate them, I knew the dealerships were people. And I wanted to serve them. But the issue was, I never thought I knew more than them. I knew they knew more than me. So there's this element of serving so that I can learn, but at the same time, is help someone else, if that makes sense. So
it's very practical. Truthfully.
It's practical.
Yeah.
I love the model. I don't know, for those people who might watch this who saw the TV show The Chosen, and the season after season, this idea of looking at Jesus. But what did Jesus do? He had 12. He was, whether you're a Christian or not, whether you believe in Jesus or not, we can all agree that Jesus was on earth. It's written about historically. There was 12 disciples. Those are people written that have been historically figured. Think about it. What kind of person comes on the scene and has 12 people following him to go nowhere? These are 12 people, most of them being people of commerce, don't know where they're even going. He must have been an amazing leader. And what did he do wherever he went? The stories are told of healing people, of helping people, of serving people, serving these 12, teaching them how to serve. And again, wherever you're deciding, where a person who's watching this, listening to us, wherever your own faith is, my belief is, if you listen to the story and you listen and learn, even if you don't want to believe Jesus is the Son of God, you can still believe that he was one of the greatest leaders of all time. He was a servant. And to me, those were the elements that kind of led to me. I wanted to serve as many people as possible. And just to be honest with you, the core of my life, I've always said, I work for God. Wow. He's my boss. I then make decisions with him being my boss. But here's what's great. It's super, at the time, for my career, it was super in line with Toyota's core values, which is what? Kaizen, continuously improving, means there's a humility that says you've never arrived, and respect for people, putting others first, loving people. So for me, my own personal beliefs matched up with Toyota's philosophy. And I was able to make decisions by trusting that God is my boss. And quite honestly, it served me well because it was always about how can I help somebody else? And that's what I still believe today. That's why even as I think about my future, how can I help people? And that's what I want to do.
Well, I think this is a great moment. First of all, you're clearly very passionate. I can tell by just how you're speaking about it. I think it's a great moment to transition to some of the Jack resignation rumors.
Yeah.
Or Jack leaving Toyota rumors. Shall we go into it now?
Retirement.
Fine, retirement. All right, so let's have some fun with this, right? Let's kind of go down the list, and we'll give you a chance to say either agree or disagree. So one of the early ones I actually saw, which this one had some legs actually, it was that you were joining the government. It was a picture with you and I think maybe it was the CEO of X possibly, but that was one of the early rumors. Jack joining the government. Are you joining the government, Jack?
That was an accurate rumor. There was a lot of activity with me with federal government. Let's put it this way. There was a lot of truth to that rumor.
Okay, but that was historical. I would say past. There's no more truth to it today, possibly.
There's still an open door that is being considered.
Okay, so you're being courted. I like to hear it. Rumor number 2, Jack is not doing well from a health perspective. God forbid.
I've never been healthier. I'm very, very thankful that today I sit here in front of you, and I'll throw down a 10K later today.
Let's go, baby.
I'm actually I'm fully healthy. Never been stronger. Never been better.
All
Just
right,
had my physical. In fact, in physical, I had set my own personal records.
Okay, there you go. You're crushing the bots, man. The bots are dying right now. All right, and it's rumor number 3. Jack is imposing his personal beliefs internally at the company, and that is causing issues.
That would be a false one. However, I guess you could say it's true that because wherever I go, I have my own values, just like you do, and so does each person. And so, no, Toyota actually allowed me. I started a group. You know how most companies, most corporations have they'll have like a veterans group, or they might have they call business partner groups. They might have one like for Hispanic Americans, African Americans, pets, veterans, whatever. We started one called Toyota Christian Fellowship, TCF, and it grew. In fact, I'm really proud. We grew it with 7 individuals, just starting by getting together, and now they have over 900 people in this. And I was able to chair that for the last 5 years and do that. So no, Toyota allowed for the kind of the growth of that. But I do think I can understand where it comes from because globally, I was getting invited to speak a lot of places globally about my faith and about how faith and business go together. And what's great is I really got good support even from Mr. Toyota, who said, hey, listen, it's important for us as people to share our values. And I really appreciate that Akio Toyota has the leadership to make that an important thing. So no, I don't think that one was accurate. Were there people who didn't like what I did? Yeah, and that's any corporate America. Were there people who would rather have me not spoken out on that? Sure. But for the most part, I've been free to do what I need to do, and that's what I call my own ministry. And I'm very, very thankful to have been able to keep pursuing my ministry.
Mm-hmm. Jack, why now? Why transition now? Why is this the time?
Oh, yeah, and I agree. That's probably the right question. Why now? 33 years in, 58 years old. What's kind of going on? And I kind of look at it as someone just wrote me this earlier this week. They said, Jack, do you realize that you were the only person, at least I guess it needs to be verified, who started at the entry level as management trainee. That's even like a pre-real job, right? It's just you got a nothing. You're just a gopher.
1992.
You started there, right? And you reached the top. And it's the only person to go through the whole deal. I'm like, I don't know if that's true. They're like, yeah, I think it's true. I'm like, okay. And you go through it. You go through the 33 years and you get there and reach the top. And we've had the last 2 years record profits. Lexus has set their all-time best ever sales record. I got to be a part of that. I got to coach us when we were starting the Olympics, and for 8 years, I was able to be the global marketing officer. You talk about a passion. Maybe we'll get to that because that's like huge to me. That just ended right with these past Olympics, and that was over. I was able to be a part of moving us through all of the transitions through all of COVID and what happened there. And that was one of the most proud things we've had. Beating General Motors, first time in 90 years. All these things kind of happened, had crescendoed. We're at the top. And you think about every athlete. When should an athlete leave? Championship years, when you're on top. And I feel like that. And the people that I have been able to, what I would call mentor and lead, and the team, set behind me, we're ready. Able to hand the baton to Mark Templin, a good friend, and have him take over with all the rest of the people that were, the team being not perfect. No team's perfect, but really settled. It was just the right time. And at the time, there were a lot of those rumors that were happening, and a lot of courting, and a lot of times, and we'll see where that ends up. But I would say that it was just a perfect convergence of time and time to go.
Okay, so you mentioned one thing there that I want to touch on, which is record profits. I think this sort of leads into one of the questions that about just Toyota in general, more tactical, but people ask me a ton, right? Like Toyota runs a very low day supply, and obviously, lower supply, that is, better for profits and whatnot. But talk to us just a little bit of, largely carrying what is like a 15 to 20 day supply for many years, really, in the US. And just how intentional has that been to carry such little amounts of inventory relative to demand?
First of all, let's just make sure we're clear. When the low day supply, the profitability really works. This goes back to being CDG, our car dealership guy. The dealers win when the supply is low, right?
That is true.
Because economically, supply and demand. It's just, that's it. Has it been a decision by the company while I was there? I don't want to talk about the last 90 days because I don't know if anything has changed, but I can tell you while I was there, the goal was always to find the best balance, right? What is the best balance for the dealer and for the OEM? And the reason to do so is to think about that is you want to be able to minimize the incentives needed to spend for any product, right? You can wholesale a whole bunch of vehicles. You can produce even more and wholesale a lot more to the dealers. But at some point when they're not moving, the dealer's profitability goes down and you got to incentivize them. And so it hurts both sides. Its brilliance is to keep the lowest day supply possible without being too low that you lose sales. And sometimes we got to a point where, hey, the sales got so hot, we couldn't even keep up with production. Meaning, sometimes you're good and sometimes you're lucky and sometimes you're both. Well, that's what happened. If you look at it really through the end of COVID time, Toyota was both really, really good, the best in the industry, and lucky because of the timings. And you put them together and that maximized the profits for both sides, both the dealer and for the OEM.
Do you think it's hurt consumers in any way? I mean, it's obviously you can't maximize market share necessarily when you're not, building even more than Toyota has traditionally, but do you think it's hurt consumers?
Well, the low day supply, no. I think the industry has hurt consumers by mandates that come from both government, state governments, federal governments, and pushing products into the marketplace that have risen prices because what people want. So then it's always going to come back to an economic model. They buy their pocketbook. They're saying, we're not wanting that. We want this. And when hybrids started going, they want that. And so like anything, the prices are going up because the demand's so high and production can't keep up. I mean, it's just an economic cycle. It's not a Toyota thing or a Tesla thing or a Rivian thing or a Honda thing or a Ford thing. It's not. It's a full package of industry. So there's no way I can give you an answer. Did it hurt consumers? The whole industry has increased the pricing. That pricing is increased because of the simplicity of the fact that the electric kind of onslaught has risen those prices because to produce them is very, very expensive. Mm-hmm. And that has to just be stopped and really reevaluated. And I think there's a legitimate discussion to say that the industry hurt the consumer by not listening to the consumer well enough. And it's actually why Lexus and Toyota have won at a greater speed. That's it.
This episode is brought to you by Wrench Total Care. Want to boost your gross profits by selling prepaid maintenance without a service center? This new offering levels the playing field between independents and the big dealers. Wrench Total Care lets you offer mobile maintenance plans, oil changes, tire rotations, even brakes, all done at your customer's home. Your customers get convenience, you get more revenue on every deal. And if you're using Dealer Center, it's already built into your workflow for seamless upsells. Not on Dealer Center? No problem. Visit wrenchtotalcare.com and start earning on every deal today, or click the link in the show notes below.
Well, so you mentioned listening to the customer and just the price points we're at today. And I know earlier in the conversation, I briefly mentioned Scion. Do you see that as a real opportunity in today's market? Or do you see any opportunity with a super inexpensive car on a relative basis? Is that the opportunity in the market today? If you were listening to the customer and you were out here just doing something new, what is it? What is the opportunity?
Yeah, when you posted the other day and you asked for some questions, I kind of went through looking at some of them. Someone was talking about a very interesting kind of this $20,000 truck, and they talked about this or entry level. Here's the problem with that, not for Toyota, for the industry. Regulations now have created so much from the safety regulations, from so many of different regulations, that the base level of vehicle could almost not, you get up to 15,000 as like asterisk, like it's just like here's just to meet these requirements. And then if you want to exceed them at all, and most manufacturers want to exceed the minimum level because you don't want to just be at minimum, you're looking at $20,000 at the place of entry. So let's be very careful.
Before you even blink, you're at 20K.
I mean, look at the popularity and the strength of the used car market now for 4 straight years. Why? Because you get a great vehicle still at a price that is acceptable, right? It's kept it strong there. So when I look at it and going through, so what I think is missing, I do think there is missing from the industry some of that basic transportation. Basic small truck is still there. I mean, there's some entries, but look at the entries that are smaller trucks that are coming out that are electric. They're the same expense as a Tacoma, and you're going to buy the Tacoma, tried and true. Person who wants to drive their truck, right? I mean, so there's a room. There's an under Tacoma, kind of small entry level truck level that still hasn't been nailed yet, and I think that's probably a good opportunity. But I'm also going to say there still has to be somebody. One of the things about Scion was, how do you think like a young person? And people will say they're doing their research. I'm just telling you, Scion was amazing. It was the perfect thing for Toyota and Lexus. It was this incubator of learning, and it helped to inform what Lexus and Toyota is today. And I'm so thankful. Jim Lentz, who is really, you said something about introduced it. Actually, Jim Lentz, a former CEO and a good friend, he actually is the one who introduced it and he launched it. I was just fortunate enough to be able to run that for a time. But the learning, so where there's an opening, is to truly listen to the sub 25-year-old and really get that idea from that 16 to 25. Where do you want us to go? And if we're really listening to the consumer, I don't have the answer, but they do.
You know, what's interesting about your thought process is you came up, at least part of your time, you were in marketing roles. And I think that type of role at least helps get you to that point where you're saying listening a lot, talking to the customer, right? Sometimes, you know, in many cases, you have CEOs of different backgrounds. Some maybe come from the finance background and stuff like that. But I think that's a really good point. In the market that we're in today, given all the shifts, having that ability to really understand where the market is going and being close to the customer, it's a skill set that ports, I like to think, very well from someone who's been in marketing where you've done that. It doesn't mean anything if you've been in marketing. You could be a shitty marketer, but in your case, you were a great marketer, and you can tell that you still talk a lot about these basics of understanding the real needs of the consumer. So
maybe just make a point here. I think what's really important. People often want to say, Jack, you were a great marketer, and that's an eye of the beholder. Someone might say yes, someone might say no. I say I just loved it, but the reason to love it was to bringing the good listening of a great amount of partners. And I think it's really important is to understand it still comes back to listening. And so in this case, having an advertising agency, at Toyota Lexus, you have Saatchi and Saatchi and Team One, great agency, part of one of the largest under the Publicis heading. And you have a leader there. And I bring them up because of this. All they wanted to do was listen and partner really well with Jack Hollis and our marketing team. And then I had all these teammates, which were great, who wanted to just do what? Have a lot of fun to make customers enjoy it, like have fun. But the only way to do that is to listen. And I do think that those OEMs who have marketers or have people who have come through the marketing who have reached at least maybe not COO or CEO, but who are at the top echelon, they do a better job of listening. And I'm still going to come back to it's not about us. It's about them. It's not about us, the company. It's about the dealer. It's not about us. It's about the customer. And that is the key to, in my opinion, clearly to being a great marketer.
What do you think of the Toyota RAV4 taking the #1 spot in 2024 for sales in the U.S.?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I was still there for that. So I'm going to go, woo! But the fact is this. It's important, and I don't care what business you're in. I don't care anybody who's watching this. It cannot the result comes from doing the right thing over and over for a long period of time. I will always tell you, people before performance. You invest in people, you invest in the dealership, you invest in the total infrastructure, and your performance starts to gain. You should never compete, though, unless you're going to compete for first place. I use this, and sometimes when I'm speaking, I'm like, how many of you woke up this morning and said, I want to come in 7th, and no one puts their hand up? How many of you came and said, I want to be first place? Everybody does. But why is it that everybody doesn't do the things to come in first place? Well, how come you're not disciplined to work out every morning? I mean, the guys who win in the Olympics, they are dedicated, right? They're self-disciplined. It's hard to be #1. So take it RAV4 from where it was 15 years ago to be the #1 car, #1 vehicle. That didn't just happen because someone said, let's be #1. It was, we're going to invest. People, listen. And then finally it comes out. So yeah, I'm super proud.
It's incredible work. Jack, if you were starting an auto manufacturer today,
yeah,
what would be the core values of the company, right? And the context for this question is, I know Kaizen is just a massive part of Toyota's culture, and it's a big part of it. But I want to understand, what other parts of Toyota impacted you and how you think about, if I'm listening and I say, I want to replicate this success, or I want to build something at this scale and magnitude and just the way Toyota has done it. What are these values that you would take with you to something in the future?
I'm totally chuckling because I can't tell if you're hitting me with a cross hook, because there's some rumors out there of my next job and maybe being part of some groups who could use culture change. And if I was starting up, I think it's really important. The word I would start with from a value is servanthood.
Okay, so you're putting people first. We're not talking zeros and ones. We're not talking, I guess it's some form of continuous improvement, but we're talking like start with the people. We're in an increasingly AI world. There's more, robots, and there's more automations and all these things. You're talking about value. Okay. And value. Company values.
I don't care. The company values and personal values, in my opinion, have to go together. That's why if you look at the Ford company, family name, Toyota, if you look back, most of them, it comes from some sort of a family creation.
Yes.
Okay. The name may not match it, but most of the time, right, it had to do with a very simple family beginning. So you have to go to the corporate values being personal values. They have to. And secondly is if you're producing a product, it's going to be consumed by people. And to my opinion, the core value has to start with something that touches the heart of people. Brains do make your decision. Your heart is what makes you loyal and what makes you love it and why you want more of it. And so you have to touch a person's heart. So the value, in my opinion, has to be something that crosses over from heart to mind or mind to heart. It is. And in my opinion, that word is servanthood. So my value is how we can serve. Now, a tactic for that would be AI. I want to serve you more. So how can I utilize AI to serve Yoast better? That would be a question I would continue to want to ask.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
So my core would be is servanthood. Now we can immediately go in my mindset and my programming of my brain has been about Kaizen, because there is no best, there's only better, and that comes from this the value of humility. So the other one would be, the second value would be humility. People are drawn to humility and they're turned away from arrogance. How do you foster that as the core inside of a company so that the people who are hiring are not better than anyone else? And that comes with servanthood. So that's where I feel very, very strongly would be my core values if I'm starting up any company in the auto space or anywhere. But the tactics used would be about some sort of a element of the AI is clearly there, clearly going to change the trajectory of all businesses. So how do you tap into AI, which is robotic, and somehow use it to make personal growth happen? And that's where I think that I truly believe, I don't care what companies, what industry, those who figure out how to use AI to enhance people and personal relationships is going to get totally fire.
I find myself just speaking with ChatGPT more than I speak with anyone else at this point. It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm just having full-on conversation. It's giving me strategy. It has all my memory at this point. So it knows my personality. It knows what I care about. It's truly remarkable. So I just think, what's next step, you integrate that in your vehicle and anything else in your life. I mean, it's just crazy, the capabilities that are here.
The capabilities are there. And I think that's what's kind of fun about ChatGPT or any AI. But to what end? What is the end of everybody using it? And you just said it. It gets to know you. I want to be known, not for what people think, but I want to be known for who I am. I want to know you for who you are. And I think it's the same with ChatGPT. The better it knows us, the more it becomes personal, and more it becomes exactly what is truth in us. And that's really, I'm sorry to keep coming back to it, but I think it's really about how we help other people. I do. The more you help other people, then all the performance and first place and profits, the sky's the limit. You can't control it then.
So tell me more about education, but here's a crosshook for you. How are you, tell me about, I want to know about your kids. And I know you have kids because we've talked about it before last time I saw you. But tell me a little bit about what they're up to. Are we, universities, like what are you, I don't want to say pushing them to study, but I think that given all this change in the world and the economy, I even ask myself, and I have way younger kids, but I say, what will they need to study or learn or get educated on in, 10 years from today? Like, how will the world look like? So I want to know from you, what does that look like in your family today? What do you think is important for, from an education perspective?
So I have 4 kids, and they're amazing. And our family's name is Team Hollis. And we did that from the time I got married in 1991. Was asked my wife if she'd be a team that shines for God. She says yes, and we named ourselves Team Hollis on the day we got married, and we've been growing Team Hollis ever since. And I now have one daughter in love. She married my oldest son. I have one who's now engaged to be married, and I'll have another daughter in love, and we'll keep growing it. And then hopefully not too long, I'll get some grandkids running around here and we'll get going. It's interesting. The question you ask is I have 4 and they range from 20 years old to 31 years old. So I have 3 of them are out of school. One's still in school. And when we talk about education, there's 3 separates. There's the relationship education that happens from being in society and being active and helping others. And I look at that through both church and in friends. And so there's this relational side. I also put in that education is travel. I think you really want to learn, you travel. You go to other cultures. You get into cultures that you don't understand with different languages. I've been fortunate enough to be able to help the kids go to many places. And I think the education there is about understanding that life is not about you. It's not about you. It's life about how you interact with other people. And so that relational education is huge. From a scholastic education, we always talk about you need to push yourself. I'm not a guy who says you have to have A's to be successful. You have to be challenged, and you have to go into the areas that you're really not comfortable in and go learn it. And I think there's a lot about learning that comes from literally just challenge. Take a class that you're not comfortable in. I love public speaking. Most people don't. I love it. I got 4 kids who could go up on stage with me right now and kill it. They pushed into an uncomfortable zone. And these are kinds of things. So when I talk about education, it's the variance in education. And then 3 is I'm always going to come back to the spiritual side, is learning the Bible. And because I still believe that all the answers there, it's truth, and you can find the answers in there. So there's really 3 pieces. There's the relational or societal. There's the dimension of really the hard, education like schooling. And then there's biblical and or spiritual.
This episode is brought to you by LotLinks. Want to move metal faster and make more on every deal? It's all inside the machine. LotLinks helps you take the guesswork out of inventory decisions. Their VIN manager shows you in real time which cars to stock, how to price them, and where to put your ad dollars so you're not wasting a cent. It's like having a crystal ball for your lot so you can buy smarter, price better, and sell quicker. Check out lotlinks.com, that's LOTLINX.com, or hit the link in the show notes below and see how the LotLinks machine can power your dealership.
Yeah, one of the lines I love. This sort of relates to one of the things you said there, but it goes something like, if the mind can see it and believe it, it can achieve it. Sure. And I think teaching your kids that, I'm a huge believer in that, because I'm of the philosophy of, I don't care what you want to do in life as long as you do it, best, or strive to be great at it. And I think that's really important, whether you're a farmer or you're an executive. I mean, wherever you fall on the spectrum, do whatever, but do it really well.
That's right.
So a little secret, I actually have this tattooed on myself. So that was a little 20-year-old, we were doing a bunch of fun things like that. But it was one of those things that I've always believed, like be your best at. And it's not that exact statement. It's in like a whole short version. But be best at what you're at. I really believe in that.
What's interesting is you're probably aware, someone like me probably has said it, but that is it's even in the writings of the Bible, even in the book of Colossians. Whatever you're going to do it to the best, do it to the maximum, right? And it's to be the best, or run the race to win. Verse of the Bible said, run the race. Don't run just to compete. Run to win. And that's what you're talking about. Don't just don't hang. Go after it, man. Be the best.
Yeah, I learned a lot about this from the story of Uber, actually. They were very public about, hey, we only enter markets that we win. And that was, again, it was one of the first times I was exposed to that in like a corporate setting. And I was like, wow, this is a very smart, aggressive, makes sense.
Totally.
So before we're getting close to wrapping up, but I have to kind of shift it to also, I got to ask you about your wife. And specifically, you were 33 years at corporate America, super busy. How did you invest in that relationship? Like, this is, you're a smart guy. I'm sure there was some things, but maybe you can teach us a thing or two here about, about greatness in relationships.
Well, I will tell you, I am super thankful for one of the greatest decisions I could ever make in life was to marry Jane. And there's that part of about investing in any relationship is both time and attention. And what made it, what has been great is that when I went to work, I'd give 100% of who I am to doing my job to the best of my ability. Some days that took 6 hours, sometimes that took 16 hours. but I couldn't schedule that on a daily basis. But when I left work, I then came home and these are her words, but I was able to shut it off and then be able to give her 100% of who I am.
That's powerful.
And there was things I had to do. I had to implement tools of taking the phone once we had phones, because we started before there was a cell phone, but is to take those other things and put them away. And you know what, who the best barometer is if you're balanced in life? Your spouse. And she would tell me.
Say that, or kids, but that's a good one, yeah.
Well, but the kids, even though they're being young, they don't even know yet. Now they do. My kids tell me a ton.
They don't
now.
know any better, yeah. That's a good point.
But my wife would be able to say, like, I would even ask her, are we good? Like, is the timing? She's like, I think we're great. And other times she's like, you know what? You need to be around more, or you need to. And it was finding that balance, not finding the balance. It's wrong. It was finding to make sure to understand that my priority was still going to be, number one, my wife. Well, first was God, 2 was my wife, 3 was my kids, and 4th was my job. And that had to be in that order so that I could be good at my job. The only way to be good at, for me, my experience has been to be best at my job was to be best at my home. And that home life was centered on God, wife, family, or kids. And that was the core. And I would tell you, that's how I did it. It's still doing it today. And really, again, it's back to listening. I keep coming back, ask people stuff. They'll point out your weaknesses. They'll point out the stuff that you suck at. Listen to them and adjust. But you got to be willing to listen. And I think what I have done well and probably still need to continue to work on is listening. And that's probably it, man.
Do you really think that's listening? You think that's the one?
I think that's the core. I think asking good questions and then listening to that answer. Being willing to say, I don't know. Can you help me? Or how am I doing? Or what can I do for you? Those questions are questions that I use with my kids. I use with my wife, not because I have to, because I want to. And I say that I guess that could sound a little esoteric, but what I have learned is that listening and being willing to take in their suggestions and their concerns or criticism and being able to apply, then pray over them and think through them to change. I think it's a big piece. Core piece.
So speaking of that, questions, I mean, is there anything that you think I could have asked you better, or that I just simply didn't ask you? That's something sitting. So, by the way, when I said I got to ask you about your wife, you should have seen your face. That was epic. You didn't expect that one, but that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for, right?
Totally.
I just gotta go in different directions, keep it interesting. Anything that I didn't ask you that I should have?
You are an expert. You are a professional, and
I feel underqualified. I just want to put that out there, but
stop it. Well, okay, but let's talk about that. That's a humility piece that makes you have done a fantastic job. You are growing a following, and the reason you're growing a following is authenticity. I see that in you. I watch that in you. Even asking me the question, what could I have done better, is exactly the people that I want to be associated with. That's asking the right kind of question. I ask that a lot to people. What could I have done better in that meeting? What could I have said better? So your question, first of all, I just want to give you credit. You are doing a great job. And I see your following. I read what you're doing. I don't follow a lot of people, but you have that mix. I don't know what I would have asked me other than I think that the elements are leadership development, things around leadership development. How do you develop leaders? Can anybody be a leader? Things around that. And the only other thing it would have been is things about, if you say, what are your passion points now going forward, things like that. Because it's always going to still come back to building something and loving on people. And how to do that. Those are the only 2 areas I probably would have thought you were going to go down.
So let's end with that. I mean, you told us briefly, maybe some government down the road. What is next for Jack Hollis? I mean, do we have any idea of, in general life, whether it's more career oriented or not? Any specifics? You are a free agent at the moment. We'd love to know kind of where you're heading next, or what's interesting to you.
I'll tell you, it's interesting you even use the word free agent. I'm a huge sports fan, okay? And I've always heard athletes say, this is my first time to experience being a free agent. And why? Because they kind of want to know, do they have any value? And I'm telling you, when you leave and you retire from title, you're like, I think I have value, but you don't know. I mean, to the marketplace. Well, I don't know exactly what's next. We're close. When we are done today, I actually have 2 more inquiries, offers. It's been great. God has blessed me with a significant amount of offers. The government sector, dealership world, sports world, franchises, leagues.
Wow.
I think you may be aware that I did accept, I know you were aware, I did accept a position with the 2034 Olympic Games for in Salt Lake City as the organizing committee, and that's proud of that. It's a volunteer spot, but it's a passion of mine. Even working with the 2028 Games in LA, that's a passion of mine, and the athletes that I developed relationships with through through Toyota has been a passion of mine. So there's that side of it. But there's some things that there's this little itch that I need to scratch. I'm feeling like about, instead of being back in an institutional or a corporate type of world, maybe a little entrepreneurial space that has been intriguing. And I think I learned a lot about that when I was at Scion, and even some of the jobs I've had through the company within Toyota and Lexus. I have an entrepreneurial spirit, which sometimes was supported, sometimes not so supported. But I like the idea of maybe helping somebody build something, maybe help me build something. And so I'm playing with those ideas as well. So there's a lot there, and I'm just thankful to have had many offers and then to see where we might go. And but here's the deal. Who's my boss? God.
Up there.
God's my boss. And I work for him, and he will tell me, he'll give me my next assignment, and I'm looking forward to the next assignment.
What a king. I love this. Jack, thanks so much for coming on. Keep us posted with what's next, because this is going to be super interesting. But dude, really appreciate it. It's been amazing.
Completely my honor, my privilege to be with you. I do think you're killing it. I love what you're doing. Please keep doing it in the same way. Be raw, be authentic, be transparent. And
We're not stopping.
You're going to keep killing it. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. It's been a great day.
Thank you, Jack.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.